Raising a baby in a one-bedroom condo has not been easy, especially with our long Canadian winters being cooped up in here. It can be really frustrating at times. I'm a new mom to an 11-month-old son, and today I'm going to share with you our 5 biggest challenges as new parents, how we dealt with them, and along the way, I'll share a few products that really helped us make the most of our small space. So, our very first challenge obviously was limited space. We only have one bedroom, so the living room became my son's nursery. He slept out here in his crib, but more recently, because he's now 11 months old, he's crawling around like crazy and a lot more mobile. We had to invest in this play yard that I'm actually sitting in. And because of that, there's no longer any room for the crib. So the crib had to go back into the bedroom. And honestly, we just need to adjust and adapt as we go and as our son continues to develop. That's just something we've had to learn to do. In terms of things like a designated change area or change table, we don't have that. We basically just push our change pad under a chair, and when we're ready to change him, we'll pull it out and change him on the floor. So we keep things very simple here. We really can't bring in too much furniture or things that are too bulky because it'll just close off our very small space. Challenge number 2 is our lack of storage and just doing our best to avoid clutter. So clutter when your space is small seems to build up really, really quickly. Even within this play yard, it's constantly a mess. So I have to come in here and clean it very frequently. But a few things that have really worked well for us are, first of all, being thoughtful or very intentional with each of our purchases, especially if they're furniture pieces, because we don't want to take up more space than we need to. That will take away from the space that our son can use, for example. So we try to be minimal as much as we can. For example, I purchased a new desk, and at IKEA, I was looking for something that was really streamlined, not bulky, and kind of was cohesive with our space. So those are the kind of things I'm considering when purchasing furniture pieces. The second thing is that we need to be creative. So things like buying our bed frame, we wanted to make sure that we could put storage underneath. So we bought something that was up off of the floor, enough that we could slide things and store a ton of things underneath. And that's been really helpful because we don't have enough drawer space. I purchased this IKEA clothing organizer. So I just organize all of my son's clothing based on the category, like tops, bottoms, sweaters, things like that. And these over-the-door shelves have been super helpful in our tight space because it essentially gives us like 2 extra shelves and it doesn't take up any foot space. It's up on the door and I can fit a ton of stuff in there. So for example, in one of them that's hanging on my bedroom door, I put all of my son's diapering essentials, all of my breastfeeding or pumping essentials, socks and small items like that. And it's super easy to go and pick up what I need. And there's like tons of pockets. So if you're interested, I'll link that below. Another thing that's worked really well is that we use baskets or cute woven baskets that are made of either wood or fabric, and that helps to keep things organized, but it kind of keeps things cozy as well. And I prefer them to things like boxes, for example. And finally, another tip is to rotate out my son's toys. So when some of his older toys start to accumulate and take up too much space, I will put them into storage, and then later on, when he hasn't seen them for a while, I'll take them back out. We do have a locker room, thankfully, so we can put some stuff down there. So challenge number 3 is safety or baby-proofing the place. Again, because our space is so limited and so small, it can be very difficult to baby-proof everything. We've done our best, for example, baby-proofing our outlets and sharp corners, things like that. But one thing that's really helped us, at least for the time being, is this play yard. So it's pretty big. It's about 50 by 60 inches in dimension. And it's so nice because we can play with him in here and also supervise him while he's playing so that he doesn't just crawl around and touch something that he shouldn't. So that's really been helping, and I would consider a game changer. I highly recommend getting a play yard or like a corral of some sort if you're having issues with that. I also have a bunch of houseplants on a shelf over there, so once he's able to walk, which I think is going to happen very soon, I'm probably going to have to figure out what the best setup would be for those, just to make sure he's safe, but also they're safe because I do love my plants. Challenge number 4 is cabin fever or feeling really cooped up or confined, especially during the colder months. We live in Canada, so the winters are not only very cold, but it can last months and months, sometimes up to 5, 6 months, it feels like. So it's really important for us to get out of the house as much as we can during the winter. Things like going to a local mall for stroller walks and for allowing our son to socialize with other babies. That gives us a break from this small space. Sometimes even the simplest things like going on a trip to IKEA or going grocery shopping or to our in-laws is kind of nice because it's a change of scenery and we don't feel as cooped up and claustrophobic, I guess. And then, of course, as soon as we get some spring weather, we're going to be outside every day. We're going to go out as much as we can during winter. We did get our son a nice snowsuit so that he can go out in the winter as long as it's not too cold, but obviously it's not as easy during the winter. And finally, I think something that I was really stressed out about was the baby crying and getting noise complaints because we do live in a condo and we share walls with our neighbors. So, yeah, I was worried about that. Sometimes he cries very loudly, and I'm almost certain that people can hear him, but thankfully, we haven't had any issues so far. And now that he's a little bit older, there's a little bit less crying, although he still cries quite a bit. Honestly, I've come to accept that it's inevitable. And yeah, babies are going to cry and we just have to deal with it. Thankfully, no issues or complaints from the neighbors as of yet. So, those were our 5 biggest challenges and how we're coping as new parents in a small space. We're still figuring it out and we're trying to be creative to make our space more livable. And it's definitely tight. And as our son grows, it's going to be more of a challenge, but we're going to hang in there. And hopefully, in a few years, we'll be able to upsize to a bigger space. But yeah, I hope that helps in case any of you are going through the same struggles, especially in this economy and with the housing crisis. I think a lot of people are going to be in a similar situation as us. And I just wanted to share some things that have been working for us, but also that we're actively struggling with. If you have any space saving hacks that I haven't talked about, we could definitely use them. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.